The history of Poland during the Piast dynasty is the first major stage in the history of Poland. The Piast period lasted from the late 9th through the 14th century, when Poland was established as a state and a nation during the Middle Ages of European history. The history of the Polish state commences with the founding of the Piast dynasty by Siemałat, succeeded by Leśniak and Przemysl, and finally Moscow I around 960, when his rule began. The indigenous Piast ruling house was largely responsible for the formation of the Polish state and remained in power until the second half of the 14th century. Moscow chose to be baptized in the Western Latin Rite in 966, which established a major cultural boundary in Europe. Moscow completed the unification of the West Slavic tribal lands fundamental to the existence of the new country of Poland. Following the emergence of the Polish nation, a series of rulers converted the population to Christianity, created a strong kingdom and integrated Poland into the European culture. Moscow's son, Bolesław I, established a Polish church province, pursued territorial conquests and was officially crowned in 1025, becoming the first king of Poland. The first Piast monarchy collapsed with the death of Moscow II Lambert in 1034, followed by its restoration under Casimir I. Casimir's son, Bolesław II the Bold, brought back the military assertiveness of Bolesław I, but became fatally involved in a conflict with Bishop Stanislaus of Szczepanów, and was expelled from the country. Bolesław III, the last duke of the early period, succeeded in defending his country and recovering territories previously lost. Upon his death in 1138, Poland was divided among his sons. The resulting internal fragmentation eroded the initial Piast monarchy structure in the 12th and 13th centuries and caused fundamental and lasting changes. Conrad I of Masovia invited the Teutonic Knights to help him fight the Baltic Prussian pagans, which led to centuries of Poland's warfare with the Knights and the German-Prussian state. The kingdom was restored under Władysław I the Elbow High, then strengthened and expanded by his son Casimir III the Great. The western provinces of Silesia and Pomerania were lost after the fragmentation, and Poland began expanding to the east. The period ended with the reigns of two members of the Angevin dynasty. The consolidation in the 14th century laid the base for the new powerful kingdom of Poland that was to follow. 10th–12th century. Moscow I. Adoption of Christianity. The tribe of the Polans of what is now Greater Poland gave rise to the Polish state in the early part of the 10th century. With the Polans settling in the flatlands around the emerging strongholds of Giecz, Poznan, Gniezno and Ostroledniki, accelerated rebuilding of old tribal fortified settlements, construction of massive new ones and territorial expansion took place during 920 to 950. The process continued and the Polish state developed from tribal roots in the second half of the century. According to the Chronicle Gallis Anonymous, the Polans were ruled by the Piast dynasty. In existing sources, Piast ruler Moscow I was first mentioned by Widukind of Corvey in his Res Gesta Saxonici, a chronicle of 10th century Germany. Widukind reported that Moscow's forces were twice defeated in 963 by the Veleta tribes acting in cooperation with the Saxon exile Wichman the Younger. Under Moscow's rule, his tribal state accepted Christianity and became the Polish state. The viability of the emerging state was assured by the persistent territorial expansion of the early Piast rulers. Beginning with a very small area around Gniezno, the Piast expansion lasted throughout most of the 10th century, resulting in a territory approximating that of present-day Poland. The Polani tribe conquered and merged with other Slavic tribes and formed a tribal federation, and later, a centralized state. After the addition of Lesser Poland, the country of the Vistulans, and of Silesia, Moscow's state reached its mature form, including the main regions regarded as ethnically Polish. The Piast lands totaled about 250,000 square kilometers in area, with an approximate population of under 1 million. Initially a pagan, Moscow I was the first ruler of the Poland's tribal union known from contemporary written sources. A detailed account of aspects of Moscow's early reign was given by Ibrahim ibn Yar Qub, a Jewish traveler, according to whom Moscow was one of 4 Slavic kings, established in Central and Southern Europe in the 960s. In 965, Moscow, who was allied with Bolesław I, Duke of Bohemia at the time, married the Duke's daughter, Dobryuka, a Christian princess. Moscow's conversion to Christianity and its Western Latin Rite followed on 14 April 966, and is considered to be the founding event of the Polish state. In the aftermath of Moscow's 967 victory over a force of the Wieland, which was led by Wichman, the first missionary bishop was appointed. The action counteracted the intended eastern expansion of the Magdeburg Archdiocese, established at about the same time. Moscow's state had a complex political relationship with the German Holy Roman Empire, as Moscow was a friend, ally and vassal of Otto I, paying him tribute from the western part of his lands. It fought wars with the Palabian Slavs, the Margraves of the Saxon Eastern March, and the Czechs. The victories over Wichman and Hodler allowed Moscow to extend his Pomeranian possessions west to the vicinity of the Oder River and its mouth. After the death of Otto I, and then again after the death of Otto II, Moscow supported Henry the Quarrelsome, a pretender to the imperial crown. After the death of Dobryuka, Moscow married California, 980, a German, Oda von Haldensleben, daughter of Dietrich, Margrave of the Northern March. When fighting the Czechs in 990, Moscow was helped by the Holy Roman Empire. By about the year 990, when Moscow I officially submitted his country to the authority of the Holy See, he had transformed Poland into one of the strongest powers in Central Eastern Europe. Bolesław I Church Province, Conquests, Kingdom of Poland. Moscow I died in 992. Contrary to what the first ruler of Poland had intended, when Oda with her minor sons lost the power struggle, Bolesław, Moscow's oldest son, became the sole ruler of Poland. A man of high ambition and strong personality, Bolesław embarked on further territorial expansion to the west, south, and east. While often successful, the campaigns and the gains turned out to be of only passing significance and badly strained the resources of the young nation. Bolesław lost the economically crucial Farther Pomerania. Together with its new bishopric in Kolobrzeg, the region had previously been conquered with great effort by Moscow. Bolesław Chrobry began his reign by continuing his father's policy of alliance with the Holy Roman Empire. Bolesław received and helped Wojciech of the Slavnik family, a well-connected Czech bishop in exile and missionary who was killed in 997 while on a mission in Prussia. Bolesław skillfully took advantage of Wojciech's death. The martyrdom of Wojciech gave Poland a patron saint, Saint Adalbert, and resulted in the creation of an independent Polish province of the Church with an archbishop in Gniezno. In the year 1000, the young Emperor Otto III came as a pilgrim to visit St. Adalbert's grave and lent his support to Bolesław during the Congress of Gniezno. The Gniezno Archdiocese and several subordinate dioceses were established on this occasion. The Polish ecclesiastical province effectively served as an essential anchor and an institution to fall back on for the Piast state, helping it to survive in the troubled centuries ahead. Otto died in 1002 and Bolesław's relationship with his successor Henry II turned out to be much more difficult, resulting in a series of wars. From 1003 to 1004 Bolesław intervened militarily in Czech dynastic conflicts. After his forces were removed from Bohemia in 1018, Bolesław retained Moravia. In 1013 a marriage between Bolesław's son Mieszko and Richeza of Lithuania, the niece of Emperor Otto III and future mother of Casimir I the Restorer, took place. The conflict with Germany ended in 1018 with the Peace of Bautzen Accord, on favorable terms for Bolesław. In the context of the 1018 Kiev expedition, Bolesław took over the western part of Red Ruthenia. In 1025, shortly before his death, Bolesław I the Brave finally succeeded in obtaining the papal permission to crown himself, and became the first king of Poland. Mieszko II. Collapse of the reign. King Mieszko II Lambert tried to continue the politics of his father using Bolesław's kingdom as an interventionist great power. Mieszko's actions reinforced old resentment and hostility on the part of Poland's neighbors, and his two dispossessed brothers took advantage of it. Arranging for Russian-German invasions in 1031, Mieszko was defeated and was forced to leave the country. Later, Mieszko's brothers Bezprym and Otto were killed and Mieszko partially recovered. The first Piast monarchy collapsed with Mieszko's death in 1034. Deprived of a government, Poland was ravaged by an anti-feudal and pagan rebellion, and in 1039 by the forces of Bretislaus I of Bohemia. The country suffered territorial losses, and the functioning of the Gniezno archdiocese was disrupted. Restoration. Under Casimir I, the nation made a recovery under Mieszko's son, Duke Casimir I, properly known as the Restorer. After returning from exile in 1039, Casimir rebuilt the Polish monarchy and the country's territorial integrity through several military campaigns. In 1047, Masovia was taken back from Miklor, and in 1054 Silesia from the Czechs. Casimir was aided by the recent adversaries of Poland, the Holy Roman Empire and Kievan Rus, both of whom disliked the chaos in Poland. Casimir introduced a more mature form of feudalism and relieved the burden of financing large army units from the Duke's treasury by settling his warriors on feudal estates. Faced with the widespread destruction of Greater Poland after the Czech expedition, Casimir moved his court to Krakow, replacing the old Piast capitals of Poznan and Gniezno. Krakow functioned as the nation's capital for several centuries. Bolesław II. Conflict with Bishop Stanislaw. Casimir's son Bolesław II the Bold, also known as the Generous, developed Polish military strength and waged several foreign campaigns between 1058 and 1077. As an active supporter of the papal side in its feud with the German emperor, Bolesław crowned himself king in 1076 with the blessing of Pope Gregory VII. In 1079 there was an anti-Bolesław conspiracy or conflict that involved the Bishop of Krakow. Bolesław had Bishop Stanislaus of Szczepanów executed. Subsequently, Bolesław was forced to abdicate the Polish throne because of the pressure from the Catholic Church and the pro-imperial faction of the nobility. Saint Stanislaus was to become the second martyr and patron saint of Poland, canonized in 1253. Władysław I Herman. After Bolesław's exile, the country found itself under the unstable rule of his younger brother Władysław I Herman. Władysław was strongly dependent on Palatine Sieciek. When Władysław's two sons, Zbigniew and Bolesław, finally forced Władysław to remove his hated protégé, Poland was divided among the three of them from 1098, and after the father's death from 1102 to 1106 between the two brothers. Bolesław III. After a power struggle, Bolesław III the Wry-mouthed became the Duke of Poland by defeating his half-brother in 1106 to 1107. Zbigniew had to leave the country, but received support from Emperor Henry V, who attacked Bolesław's Poland in 1109. Bolesław was able to defend his country because of his military abilities, determination and alliances, and also because of a national mobilization across the social spectrum. Zbigniew, who later returned, was eliminated. Boleslaw's other major achievement was the conquest of all of Moscow I's Pomerania, a task begun by his father and completed by Boleslaw around 1123. Szczecin was subdued in a bloody takeover and western Pomerania up to Rügen, except for the directly incorporated southern part, became Boleslaw's fief, to be ruled locally by Władysław I, the first Duke of the Griffin dynasty. At this time, Christianization of the region was initiated in earnest, an effort crowned by the establishment of the Pomeranian Walloon diocese after Boleslaw's death in 1140. Fragmentation of the realm. Before he died, Bolesław III divided the country, in a limited sense, among 4 of his sons. He made complex arrangements intended to prevent fratricidal warfare and preserve the Polish state's formal unity. But after Boleslaw's death, the plan's implementation had failed and in reality a long period of fragmentation was ushered in. For nearly 2 centuries the Piasts were to spar with each other, the clergy, and the nobility for the control over the divided kingdom. The stability of the system was supposedly assured by the institution of the Senior or High Duke of Poland, based in Kraków and assigned to the special Seniorate province that was not to be subdivided. Following his concept of Seniorate, Boleslaw divided the country into 5 principalities: Silesia, Greater Poland, Masovia, Sandomierz and Kraków. The first 4 provinces were given to his 4 sons, who became independent rulers. The 5th province, the Seniorate province of Kraków, was to be added to the senior among the princes who, as the Grand Duke of Kraków, was the representative of the whole of Poland. This principle broke down already within the generation of Bolesław I's sons, when Władysław II the Exile, Bolesław IV the Curly, Mieszko III the Old and Casimir II the Just fought for power and territory in Poland, and in particular over the Kraków throne. The external borders left by Bolesław III at his death closely resembled the borders left by Mieszko I. This original early Piast monarchy configuration had not survived the fragmentation period. Culture from the time of the baptism of Poland's ruling elite. Foreign churchmen had been arriving and the culture of early medieval Poland was developing as a part of European Christendom. However, it would be a few generations from the time of Mieszko's conversion until significant numbers of native clergymen appeared. After the establishment of numerous monasteries in the 12th and 13th centuries, Christianization of the populace was accomplished on a larger scale. Intellectual and artistic activity was concentrated around the institutions of the church, the courts of the kings and dukes, and emerged around the households of the rising hereditary elite. Written annals began to be generated in the late 10th century. Leaders like Mieszko II and Casimir the Restorer were considered literate and educated. Along with the Dagomereudex Act, the most important written document and source of the period is the Gesta Principum Paulinorum, a chronicle by Gallus Anonymous, a foreign cleric from the court of Bolesław the Rye-mouthed. A number of pre-Romanesque stone churches were built beginning in the 10th century, often accompanied by Palatium ruler residencies. Romanesque buildings proper followed. The earliest coins were minted by Bolesław I around 995. The Gniezno doors of Gniezno Cathedral are the finest example of Romanesque sculpture. Bruno of Querfurt was one of the pioneering Western clergymen spreading church literacy. Some of his prominent writings had been produced in eremitic monasteries in Poland. Among the preeminent early monastic religious orders were the Benedictines and the Cistercians.